My name is Anja Nikolic. I'm the CEO of the Australasian Institute of Digital Health. We are a peak body for everyone and anyone that works in the digital health sector, be they clinicians or informaticians, technologists, academics, policy makers. Everyone who does work or has an interest in digital health has a home at the AIDH. We participated in 13 consultations, which was a record for us. Anything that touches on digital health or should touch on digital health, we made a submission on. They're all available on our website, but the two that I'd really like to highlight are our submissions, multiple submissions around AI in healthcare and the governance and regulation thereof. We contended that the current legislative and regulatory frameworks that exist for AI generically are too agnostic to accommodate the risks in healthcare, and we were arguing fairly hard that healthcare is quite unique. When things go wrong in healthcare, they tend to go royally wrong, and those things are really hard to reverse. And we know AI to be a very powerful and impactful tool. Without the right frameworks, without the right governance structures, without regulatory considerations that are focused on healthcare specifically, those risks really can come to the fore. And when they do, again, things can go catastrophically wrong because of the power of AI. So we would rather we preempt those things happening and have solid regulatory frameworks that accommodate healthcare now than do that once something has gone wrong and we have a test case. This is still an emerging community, digital health. We want people who have an affinity with it to find their tribe, if you like, within the AIDH. And so offering opportunities for people to connect and to find that tribe is really important for us. We are focused on workforce readiness and advancement. We acknowledge that the adoption of digital health and capability in digital health is quite varied. The bell curve is very spread out. So we have people who are at the very cutting edge, who are able to code, who are able to create apps and use data in really sophisticated ways. And then we have clinicians who are still using paper-based records and have quite a reluctance to engage in anything digital. However, engage they will have to. That is the way of the future. And as we work towards one health record, as we work towards the connection of health data and one patient, one story concept, all clinicians will have to get their heads around what's going on. So the strategic plan really focuses on two things in workforce advancement. The first is the support of digital health experts to increase their expertise, to lead the sector, to really achieve mastery in digital health, but also to the wider healthcare workforce, acknowledging that there are knowledge gaps and capability gaps across the board, giving them the tools and resources to get up to speed in ways that suit them. The third pillar is thought leadership. As I won't call it an emerging area anymore, but it's not as mature as some areas of healthcare. We feel that it is really important to participate fully in the creation of policy and the creation of the national agenda and to advise actively and proactively on what should happen next. So our advocacy and our policy making functions are really active. And finally, we want to do that in the spirit of togetherness, collaboration, and to value independent thought and leadership in this area. Probably the most important things to highlight in that strategic plan is the presence of a new pillar, and that is a strong and thriving membership. We are fundamentally a membership organisation. We want people to join and to feel a part of this community in a more substantive sense. And so the focus is on really providing value to those who choose to be members, so that it is a no-brainer to be a member of the AIDH if you find affinity with the topic matter. The second highlight is we had a lot of success with the thought leadership element of the previous strategic plan. Lots of our members are saying this is exactly the sort of thing that we want the AIDH to do. Whilst lots of things can be commoditised, the ownership of the voice of the sector really belongs to peak bodies. And so honouring that and strengthening our voice providing independent, accurate information and policy advice to decision makers will be elevated in the next strategic phase. We also want to make many more opportunities for learning and the achievement of mastery in the field of digital health. We will be working on delivering a clinical informatics fellowship, so a fellowship for those who are involved in digital health and leadership at leadership levels, and those who want to really lead the sector in the future will have a substantive way of building skills and proving to employers and the sector what it is that they have achieved. And at the other end of the spectrum, more diverse offerings of short, sharp, trusted learning interventions for people who are starting to dabble in digital health. Digital health was born out of nursing in hospital environments. Health informatics, which then became known as digital health, was born in that sector. And for a long time, the focus of the AIDH and most other decision makers in this sector has been on the hospital sector. And I think that that ship has sailed, or the time to refocus on the rest of the healthcare sector has come. Primary care is a huge chunk of our workforce. It's a huge chunk of our service provision and healthcare. For every one hospital interaction, a person, Joe citizen, will have 8 in primary care. So not thinking about primary care in the context of digital health is really flawed and short-sighted. We will be doing a lot more in this sector. We want to offer education and training for people wanting to get their heads around digital health who work in primary care, but also to advocate harder and more ardently about the outcomes we'd like to see in primary care. There's a lot of diversity in primary care. It is very decentralised, which means there's a lot of variable practice, if you like, in how digital health is embraced and applied in primary care. And some uniformity is probably warranted. We have very sophisticated operators in, say, general practice who utilise digital health really well, and then we still have practices that are entirely paper-based. A unification or an evening of the playing field, if you like, is really warranted. Beyond general practice, obviously, we have 300,000 people working in allied health, many of whom are in private practice. We have community pharmacies to consider. There's a very large chunk of healthcare that is provided in primary care, and a very large workforce that, again, probably needs some support in both advocacy for the right outcomes and training and information resources to help them get there. I'm really positive about the outlook for digital health. I think there are some really substantial pieces of work that are happening at the moment. I want to call out in particular the Sparked community, which is an initiative of CSIRO, and it really looks at how to implement FHIR standards, how to implement best practice for the sharing of data and information, and make that one patient, one story, one record a possibility. There's a lot of good work happening in building infrastructure and architecture for Health Connect or health information exchanges. I would like to see further investment in workforce capability, because I think wonderful things that are happening in infrastructure and architecture are great, but if people don't know what to do with them, or they have a reluctance to engage, then our ability to see the outcomes out of that will be really limited. I'm inspired by what's happening overseas. There are some really great exemplars in Europe, in Asia and the United States that can show us the way. Some things are very difficult in Australia because of our constitution and the Commonwealth. We know that we don't operate one health system, we operate several. But there is what I see as a joint understanding by all the decision makers in all of our health systems that the prize is too good to ignore and too good to sort of allow us to retreat into parochial thinking. So there's a lot of cause for optimism, but we can't have our health workforces sit idly by and watch that happen while people in the know create tomorrow. We need everyone to lean in and at least have an understanding of what's happening and a willingness to engage with the conversation around digital health.